This is me, body hair and all, because body hair is beautiful, and we're here to talk about fashion, race, sustainability, and all that super important stuff because I upcycled all these items of clothing for very purposeful reasons. But first, gotta head to the thrift, obviously. I went to the Value Village by campus because I wanted to find items I could upcycle, but I also wanted to see how many Shein tags I would find. As you can see, I found a lot, and it's really important to talk about Shein and fast fashion because of the issue of sacrifice zones, which are physical locations that are designated expendable for the sake of economic activity. Sacrifice zones are typically resource-rich lands that are generally associated with minority communities and are considered disposable and exploited for economic gain. This is usually factories in the third world, again, like Shein factories, which is why I really wanted to see how many Shein tags I could find at the thrift store. Now we're getting into a little bit more of the upcycling, and I show you guys my entire process. That was my inspo, and here's just me showing you the supplies. The process of upcycling my clothing really made me think about who made my clothes and made me really think about sacrifice zones because upcycling everything took me hours. This one shirt alone, I think, took me about like 6 hours to upcycle, and I did that myself. No one else did it for me. So who is really making our clothes in the third world? One of the biggest issues with sacrifice zones is that the people that are most affected by them are people of color. The fast fashion industry has become a threat to our environment and elicits environmental racism due to the exploitation of workers who are typically women. This idea of fashion sustainability, sacrifice zones, racism, the patriarchy, colonialism was a huge driver in why I chose to thrift and upcycle my clothing. It's because I don't want to contribute to the exploitation of marginalized groups simply because I want a new item of clothing. Sacrifice zones cause so many people to get hurt and harms our environment in so many ways. And the environment is mostly harmed in these sacrifice zones in the third world, which is so problematic. By thrifting and upcycling my clothing, I really reflected on my own clothing choices and asked myself the question of who made my clothes. While thrifting, I thought of this. The exploitation of workers and the environment was a constant idea that I thought about throughout the entirety of the upcycling process. The fact that many people of color are being exploited, especially women of color, are being exploited in order to make our clothing is extremely disorienting. So for example, if we took the 6 hours that it took for me to upcycle that last shirt times minimum wage in Ontario, that would be $105 for 6 hours. And a lot of workers aren't even getting paid $105 per day that they work. That is extremely harmful and extremely racist and problematic. Now, while upcycling this shirt, I obviously used some inspiration from Pinterest, but I really started to think about how many clothing items I've bought. And ever since starting fashion and race in this class, I have only bought 2 items of clothing, and both of the items of clothing are actually in this video, which is this shirt that I upcycled and the other one that I just happened to really, really like. The reason I haven't bought more clothes and haven't felt the need to is because I have clothing. I don't need more clothes, and buying more clothes is just the consumerist mindset just kind of at play. But here is me getting into the actual drawing of that little skeleton back. I just thought it was really cute and I wanted to try it out, and it ended up turning out pretty well. And it's important for us to just wear what we have. I don't want to be contributing to this mass consumerism, and I don't want to contribute to environmental racism in any third world countries. The biggest thing that I've done for this is just find an alternative way to be fashionable. I already have clothing, and there's some clothing items that I wasn't wearing, which is why I chose to upcycle that other shirt earlier with the cross, and it's why I wanted to find a plain black shirt so I could upcycle it. And she turned out amazing. And then here's a shirt that my best friend actually got me, but I just don't wear anymore, and I didn't want to give it away, so instead I found an alternative way to make it fashionable through a tutorial I found on Pinterest. Upcycling my clothing is not only an alternative way to be fashionable, but it also helps me really understand my personal style and see what I like. I scrolled through Pinterest for hours to find things that I might want to upcycle and that felt like me, something that I would actually wear. Through upcycling my clothing, it's really forced me to think about who made my clothes. While at Value Village, you saw how many Shein tags there were, and it's really concerning because I know that these garments were created in exploitative environments. I also upcycled my clothing in ways that were very, very purposeful in showing off my body hair and my underarm hair more specifically. I went into upcycling my clothing in a very intentional way where I showcase my body hair. Here's me showing you my 3-month grown out armpit hair. This is the absolute longest I've ever gone without shaving my armpits. Although I am genderqueer, and that's just how I identify because gender is weird and it's a social construct, but I am still perceived as woman because of the way that I present myself. My body hair has been seen as a denial of my sexuality by my mom and my family, because similar to women in the 60s and 70s, I see my underarm hair as a political statement to push forward feminist policies and tear down the patriarchy. And explaining this to older Latinas, they don't really get it because they see underarm hair as being dirty or disgusting or as us not really fitting in. By the way, I loved how this shirt turned out and the next one. I really love just showcasing my body hair in a very purposeful way because I've never really done that. And even when I do grow out my underarm hair, I usually wear long sleeves or t-shirts, so you can't really see it. So doing this definitely felt like a very, very hard feminist move, which I'm super proud of. Growing out my underarm hair for 3 months was really hard because usually the most I go without shaving is 3 to 4 weeks. And that's because I am a Latina, I have darker and I have thicker hair, and my mom would very often make me shave because of this, because she felt ashamed, not only for her, but for me, because she saw me as a reflection or an extension of who she was. My mom would often say that because I didn't shave, I was dirty, or that I was trying too hard to be a lesbian and I didn't have to grow out my hair or do this and that to kind of prove that I was gay or queer. This is obviously a very problematic mindset because it's a colonial mindset at play, and it just plays into these heteronormative ideals, which is so problematic, and I've worked so hard to dismantle in my own life. However, growing out my hair without having anyone say anything about it has honestly been really liberating. My friends and my brother were all extremely supportive of my decision to not shave, and honestly, it really helped heal my inner teenager. I started working on this assignment shortly after my grandma died, and it's really been a very nice way for me to connect back with her, and I love her so much. Thank you so much for listening.